Welcome to Hip Hop Movie Club, the show that harmonizes the rhythm of hip hop with the magic of movies. Today we're discussing episode 3 of the 2019 Wu-Tang Clan documentary of Mics and Men. We're three old heads who put their old heads together to vibe on these films for you. I'm Dino Wright, podcaster, filmmaker, longtime hip hop fan, and I like to bring the ruckus.
Hey.
I'm JB, 80s and 90s nostalgia junkie, longtime hip hop fan, and shame on you when you step through to Old Dirty Bastard, Brooklyn. I love that line.
No, it's a dope line. This is definitely a dope line. Young Boogie, a DJ, longtime hip hop fan, and I remember being completely mesmerized when that Triumph video dropped. Like, I recorded it just so that I could watch it whenever I wanted. It was just insane. The special effects and everything, completely mesmerized.
In this episode, we'll answer the question, what led to the turmoil among the members of the Wu-Tang Clan in the late 90s? And please hit that subscribe button down below so you won't miss an episode.
In episode 3 of Mics and Men, we see the Wu-Tang Clan reach international fame and glory, but also turbulence as solo aspirations conflict with those of the collective. And we see the untimely passing of Old Dirty Bastard.
Here are 5 things you need to know about episode 3 of Mics and Men. Number 1, the Wu-Tang Clan takeover. The crew reaches international fame as they go from Park Hill to Beverly Hills. Number 2, bliss. Financial success made the crew happier than ever and free from persecution, mostly. Number 3, turbulence. Cracks in the armor show as a lack of communication leads to Ghostface Killah cursing out Hot 97, the most influential hip-hop radio station in the U.S., leading to their blacklisting. Number 4, the schism. Solo success and aspirations begin to conflict with the continued success of the Wu-Tang Collective. And number 5, tragedy. Old Dirty Bastard's legal troubles and untimely death leave a major mark on Wu-Tang Clan as a whole.
All right. Now let's dig in. You see, we have, rise, climax, fall. A lot of stuff happens in this in a short time in episode 3. So first is the Wu-Tang takeover. The meteoric rise is depicted, and they gain international fame. They show them touring in Tokyo, chilling in Hawaii, all over the place. We talked about it in the prior episode, is they kind of had this perfect formula. People were hungry for this style. It's something they hadn't heard before. And they reached enormous heights. But you want to add to like that apex for...
Yes. Yeah, so as you mentioned, JB, we see some footage of the crew in Japan on tour. I mean, they're absolutely revered in Asia. I mean, you go to any countries over there, primarily, we see them in Japan, but everywhere they go, you see people stopping them on the street, feeding them food with chopsticks. It was insane. Like, they were just having a great time, and like, it was good to see them outside of their environment where they grew up at, because you could see their personality start to flourish. You start to see them having fun, enjoying life. We see them in Hawaii, even though it's technically a part of the U.S. I mean, being there definitely does feel like being in another country because of the geography and where it's located. And the crowd is just going insane as they're rocking the crowd, and you see them hanging out in Beverly Hills. They looked like they actually had a mansion because they were all there. And then you see Raekwon giving us a tour of the place and saying, everyone has their own, area where they're at. So it's like they must have had like a multi-room mansion of some sort. You see some footage of MTV Japan and them being interviewed in various places throughout Japan. And like I said, they definitely became international. And I think adding to it as well, we see them have a tour that begins with them and Rage Against the Machine. So they're not only just, doing their typical, rapping in the hood, but they're also touring the country and, performing in areas where they normally would not have gone, and having a whole different demographic of fans joining them, their collective, and, experiencing a different kind of concert, because Rage Against the Machine, they were big, and they had a different kind of crowd, and they had a different kind of performance than what they were used to, but they flourished in it. RZA talks about being on that tour and seeing all of the different races of people there, and having an epiphany, the Wu-Tang symbol, raising his hands up and showing that it made wings, and saying that we're going to use this as a symbol to symbolize the phoenix. We're going to rise above racism. We have all of these people here. We're bigger than that. We can all work together and do things together as a collective. So, their mind states were changing, not just, they weren't just, being famous, but you see their mind states start to change and they start to flourish a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I like that combination with Rage Against the Machine. Dinah Wright, you were a big Rage fan when I first met you. You had the Rage shirts. Yeah.
This is true.
Some old photos of us. You had the Rage shirt.
Yeah. Wish I still had that shirt.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they took off. They had massive success with the 36 Chambers album and went worldwide, which led to point two, Bliss. Like, they had this financial success. They were happier than ever. And they mentioned they were free from, being chased on the streets, from their upbringing. It's kind of like the Biggie lyric, is like, who know rap would take it this far? Like, they would have never imagined leaving the slums of Shaolin, Staten Island, and being able to enjoy the fruits of their labor like that. So it was kind of like a beautiful thing to see. I mean, these guys from the hood that had a lot of difficulties in terms of their upbringing. Some of them coming from broken homes, dealing with extreme racism, dealing with financial troubles, having to hustle, and being able to again enjoy the spoils like this. But leading to our next point is turbulence starts to show. So early on, this tour that we're talking about in Japan was like '94, and they're having a lot of success. And I think it was around '97 is the tour with Rage Against the Machine. But even there, at the tail end of that, you start seeing, are they getting as much money as like the Rage guys and stuff like that? There's a financial things start to pop up a little bit. And then there was that mix up with Hot 97 that we alluded to, in the takeaway, where Ghostface Killer, cursed out Hot 97, which we all know is New York City's top hip hop station, which, New York always leads the way for everybody. Whatever New York's playing, that's what everybody plays. So that was an issue where, like, I guess they were overbooked or something like that. And, there was a miscommunication where Hot 97 said, you guys got to be here, or, we're not going to play your records. And they were they forced their hand, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because I listen to Hot 97 every morning on my way to work when I'm driving to work. And they still talk about this, And I remember not too long ago, might have been right before wintertime. Funkmaster Flex was doing his PM show, but he's on and he's talking about, having the Wu-Tang Clan come out and perform. He said, I just got off the phone with the RZA. We were talking. Everything is good. We're going to do some stuff together. I got some big things coming down the pipeline. And I'm like, wow. And I'm thinking in my head, like, yo, that was a long time ago when that whole incident went down. They just started to talk again. Like, wow, it's crazy. But yeah, that was huge. I mean, Summer Jam was huge. I mean, it's still kind of big now, but it's nothing now like it was back in the day. Like you couldn't call yourself a New York artist or claim to be one of the biggest artists in the world if you didn't perform at Summer Jam. And I see like the pressure for them to come back and perform because they're actually on tour. Like, they're on tour. They're booked and they use their own money to fly back, to perform for Summer Jam. And they get there and, this is at the era when, Bad Boy was all over the place. And they're realizing like, yo, we just spent all this money to get back here. We're not getting paid. And Ghostface he had enough. And they look at him like, yo, man, don't do that. Like, what are you doing? Like, I remember, who was it that was saying? I think that wasn't Power. I think it was Mook. He was like, man, stop, man, stop. Don't do that. Ghost had a little crowd participation moment.
Yeah, he even had the crowd chanting F Hot 97.
Yep.
Like, that's how beloved they were.
Yeah.
They're cursing out the hosts of this event at their own event, which was mega popular, as you said. That was the event to be. They're a top station. And you gotta understand, these radio stations held all the power back then. This is pre-Spotify, streaming, really.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't get that airplay, that drastically impacted your record sales. So they needed that. So 10 years was the stalemate where they didn't play their records. That was huge.
Yep.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that was crazy. Yeah, exactly.
I thought it seemed like kind of like extortion or something. It was like fly out
Yeah.
from wherever you are elsewhere in the country to play the show, or else we won't play your records. Like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it seems.
Yeah.
I think that all could have been its own documentary. Like, what happened there? You kind of can not blame Ghostface for taking that stance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You get pushed around like that. Like, they've had their whole lives pushed around. Why would they start being pushed around then?
Right. And you get there, you're not even like treated like you're any kind of headliner or anything. You know, like no significance or anything. So yeah. Man,
At that point, that's the Forever album had been out, and it's their most successful album yet. And it's like, they've had there were no other choices, right? So you had to go do this, and it was like a ticking time bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. But we forgot to mention. So you mentioned Wu-Tang Forever. That reminded me how successful that whole campaign was, and the album, and like Wu Wear was everything. Like the legend of fashion, and had these pop-up stores or these actually standalone stores all throughout the country. Even I think in international sites, they couldn't keep stuff on the shelves, and because of that, they were making like $25 to $50 million profits, like because of everything between the music and the merch and that whole package, which is insane. How anything they touched turned to gold at that point. Yeah.
Yep. And the first 5 solo albums were flying off the shelves as well.
Yeah.
Only Built for Cuban Links, Iron Man, Liquid Swords, Takao went platinum right away. Turn to 36 Chambers. I mean, Iron Man. Oh man, I love that album. I listen to that album all the time. That's probably my favorite one. Yeah.
That's a tricky choice. Which of the 5 solo albums is the best one? That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're all great albums. Yeah. Absolutely. And I remember they mentioned Capadonna as well. Because Capadonna wasn't even signed to them at first. Because I remember I was like, where did this guy come from? He's nice. But like he was in jail while they were, doing the first album. But, he came out. Devon signed him right away, gave him a $250,000 check as soon as he got out of prison. Like, man. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, he's one of my favorite MCs. I had to get him right away. As soon as he came out, gave him a check. It's like, dang. Don't get no better than that. And I mentioned that Triumph video. That Triumph video was a crazy. They spent $1 million on that video. That was the first $1 million hip hop video. I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, you got to be kidding. And then it's like, no, that's true.
And I think that banishment from Hot 97 was kind of like a turning point. And then, you see some more cracks in the armor. Ghost ended up leaving and went to Africa for a year, right? Some of the egos started getting in the way, right? And then you started seeing some of the legal troubles with ODB getting arrested. Interesting character, ODB, and he escaped from the California rehab, and a lot of that stuff happened. And a lot of these things were kind of like, all right, because they had all this fame and you see their families were growing. And so then you get more and more responsibilities and it's like, all right, where are my priorities? I want to be with my family. I want to record my solo stuff. Everything was kind of like a little all over the place. And so when it's like, all right, well, we got to keep the Wu-Tang going, like where do you draw that line of keeping everything afloat? Just too much.
Yeah. I remember you guy was expressing some of his frustration. Because I remember he was popping up on everybody's solo projects. But then, when he wanted to get his album done, everybody was so ready to work on their next album, and he couldn't get his done. He said, hey, I need people to get on my album. Like, I was on your album. Devon and Rizzo was saying, like, they had a formula. We roll these out. And there's a formula, like we all help one person get their album out, then we help the next person get their album out, then we help the next person get their album out, then we help the next person get their album out, and so forth and so forth. But because of egos and everybody, getting a taste of that solo success, they're ready to put out their next album, ahead of the plan, and the formula that was laid out, and then you start seeing that frustration as well because you guys are like, hey man, I got to get my album out.
It's kind of predictable that something like that would happen. Maybe not to that
Yeah,
extent. We have so many talented performers, and then they do have these solo deals. Like there's just not enough. It's like there's only one. I'm trying to make a sports analogy. It's kind of like sometimes you need more than one basketball, but like one at a time. It's like everybody's got their own thing. You kind of have to wait in succession, especially if you're all producing this stuff like with some of the same producers.
right. And it's a lot of them. it's a lot of them.
Yeah.
You see problems when it's only like 3 guys or something like that.
2
4
guys.
guys, 2 guys, right? Exactly. It's like
Plenty too.
Yeah.
it's they got a whole starting 5 and some bench people.
Exactly. A lot of mouths to feed.
Right, and you got you think about they got 5 albums out already, and those 5 guys are ready to get back in there to do those 5, and the other haven't even touched their first album yet. Like, what about me? What about me? I get it.
Yeah. It's like the diva wide receivers. Like, I'm open. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. It's like,
Right. Exactly. No, I'm not throwing it. I'm going to run this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hey, we're putting points on the board, but I want my stats. Let's go. Yeah, it's wild. But then they talk again. Then it fades. Then it focuses a lot more about ODB, and unfortunately, like it leads up to his untimely death. Is that he's arrested. And it's odd. It's like at one point it's like he was arrested just for wearing a bulletproof vest because when you had been convicted prior, there's a law that you can't wear a bulletproof vest. I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. But he seemed to be targeted a few times, rightfully or not. And then some of the things he did were some indiscretions. However, he goes to jail and he comes out, and then Damon Dash, right, signs him right away because there was some frustration. ODB was like, hey, everybody else was a free agent, able to do their own thing, but then he didn't connect with RZA. RZA wanted him to be signed, and then it was like, nah, there was a beef going on there. It's kind of sad to see because again, they're related, they're blood, right? And it reminded me, even though Fife and Tip weren't blood, but like to see them back and forth in terms of, well, at least ODB was just very upset because he didn't have that freedom to sign where he wanted. He didn't feel like he was being treated fairly.
I thought it was interesting that they had this footage from him leaving his contract with Wu-Tang. Like, it was very prescient to be recording at that time. It was before smartphones and everything. Like, how did they know to be recording that?
Yeah.
It's like they knew they had the main character energy going.
RZA said he had a plan for him. I got a plan for we're all set. When you come out, and ODB wanted to kind of do his own thing, and Rockefeller was huge, as you said. Well, also Bad Boy was huge, but also Rockefeller. We had talked about that in the past. These were the two like gargantuans in the game at that point, and so Damon Dash gave him a bag of money, and RZA was hurt by it. He said, "I was hurt."
Yeah. You can see it. He was definitely hurt just talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But ODB said he had no money. I mean, because he had child support. He had probably legal fees, a lot of stuff. It's like I got no money. Like all this money that our group has amassed, and like I got nothing. So I don't know where the total disconnect was, or if he didn't get his fair share, or he just burned through it. I'm not sure, but like he did what he needed to do, for his family.
Yeah. I remember like Ghostface said he had to fight to get out. Inspector Deck said they had to go to court, and then ODB was sitting in jail, and he's seeing everybody getting released. And I think there was a big disconnect, and I think they probably could have talked it out. It appears that maybe somebody might have gotten in ODB's ear, because I think they alluded to something like that when Jizza called him one time, and he was on the phone with Jizza, and he got off the phone when his mother was there and said, yeah, somebody called him and told him something. So he called, ODB, trying to figure out what was going on as well. It seemed like it was a lot of he said, she said things going on, and A lot of convoluted conversations. I think they probably could have, squashed this had they actually sat face to face instead of having a lot of those phone conversations. Sometimes when you face to face with somebody, especially family, that you can see the emotion and facial expressions. Those things carry a lot of weight. And like ODB was saying, he's like, we started together before we was Wu-Tang. It was just you and me. Like it was just the two of us before we was even Wu-Tang. Like we family, man. But sad. It was sad to see that though.
I mean, they mentioned that ODB had given the group that confidence, almost like that cachet. Like ODB was like more or less the household name because he had risen to such great heights. He had that song with Mariah Carey. He had other collabs that became like hit sensations, right? Up the charts. More popular than a lot of the other songs that Wu-Tang did as a collective.
Yeah, he had a larger than life personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
His personality was all over the place. Like if you saw him, you saw him. There's no doubt about it.
Like Got Your Money and Ghetto Superstar, like all that's like insanely popular. When he died, that left a huge void, right, for the group. So it was very sad.
Yeah, I think one thing that stuck out is his mother was talking and she said, "Yeah, I heard that." Somebody said to her, I guess somebody was interviewing, said, "Yeah, we heard that you didn't cry when he died." And she said, "No, I didn't. When he died," she said, "I knew where he was at." She said, "I cried more when he was alive because I didn't know where he was and I was always worried about him." It's like, man. When she said that, I was like, wow, wow.
That's quite profound. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely a free spirit, one that flew too close to the sun, just that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame. But that's kind of where this episode ends, with ODB's passing, and they play Shimmy Shimmy Ya at the end, which I love. Yeah.
Great track.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
One part of this episode, it made me think of our live event at Ryder with Mickey Hess. We were talking about when he was on the run and nobody knew where he was. And I can't think of his name right now. It was one of the guys he said he interviewed, and he said that he actually knew where ODB was during that period.
Yeah. Buddha Monk? Was that Buddha Monk?
I think it might have been Buddha Monk. Yeah. He said, yeah, nobody knew where ODB was. And he said he knew where he was. I was like, oh, wow.
I had to cringe when they showed ODB's manager at Rockefeller, Jared.
Oh, yeah. Jared?
He didn't recognize RZA, and I thought, it's hard sometimes to recognize people out of context, but you're supposed to be a professional manager of a rap star. You should know the industry a little bit, I would think. And then he was talking about his height, like, ooh.
Yeah, I didn't realize you was as tall. I was like, okay, buddy.
Really something to talk to, but that really conversation piece.
He was awkward. He was very awkward.
Very awkward.
Yeah.
That was really like, you're out of your depth here, buddy. What's going on here? That was interesting to watch. Hip Hop Movie Club is produced by your HHMCs, JB, Boogie, and Dino Wright. Theme music by Boogie. Join us on April 24th at the Frank Banco Ale House Cinemas at Steel Stacks in Bethlehem, PA, for a screening of Hustle and Flow in 4K, starring Terrence Howard and Ludacris. Tickets at steelstacks.org. As always, check out our full live event schedule on our website, hiphopmovieclub.com. Thanks for watching the Hip Hop Movie Club show. Ring the bell so you get notified when we post new content. It's the sound of a power-up for us, so thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more where that came from. Hit the thumbnail that's about to come on the screen.
And remember, don't hate, advocate.
Yes, sir.
Advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Stand up for what you believe.
We advocate for hip hop, baby.
For the culture.
Yes, sir.